modus ponens is absolutely provable from just like an easy truth table, right? So the implication symbol, like P implies Q, is just an alias for not P or Q. And if you fill in all the values for P, Q, and not P or Q, you can see that the only place where it holds is one row.
It's just request to speak. It's I can't get into the space. I opened the Twitter app on my phone and it says unable to fetch space.
About the normativity of it, not it being false based on inference rules and axioms, and proving that through truth tables and proof trees and such. I think she's trying to get at the, if I'm not mistaken, the normativity.
Jack sometimes moralizes when I intellectually berate people. So, Jack, I just want you to know, Sean brought this on himself. He's done this so many times tonight. He's done this so many times in the past, and tonight he openly challenged me to a debate in front of other people. So he keeps doing this to himself. It's not me going after him.
Block Moto.
Arias, you were on a balloon for the beginning of it, though, so you didn't see the beginning. You have to go back and watch this replay. Oh my God, this is the most brutal destruction yet. This is like our 7th debate, and this is like maybe the second most brutal one.
Can I challenge you to a debate? You sound like somebody who would be fun to debate.
Sir, I just can't do it right now.
I have a question, God. Listen, I'm confused, and I came in towards the end. What do you mean when you're asking for justification for modus ponens? I'm kind of confused about that. Given rules of inference and axioms, I
take modus ponens to be an axiom, and I take it to be axioms that are unjustified by definition. So I don't know why Sean would claim some dumbass shit like he has justification.
That's why I was asking.
He can say he has justification for modus ponens. I asked him more than once, what's the justification for modus ponens, and he tried to give it even though he failed miserably. He never said, I don't think you can justify it.
That's okay. I was lost. I was like, why does she keep asking for justification for modus ponens?
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Oh, come on. Engage with me right now. I can justify it.
Look, you can follow me and we can debate pretty much any time. I'm on Clubhouse all the time.
What do you mean you can... Wait a minute. Hold on. What do you mean you can justify modus ponens?
As in I can prove it.
Oh yeah, did you see me destroy Sean?
Yeah, wait a minute. Just speak now. Just unmute your mic, Carlos, and just...
I agree that no justifications for axioms. I disagree that modus ponens is an axiom.
Well, it's not. You're right. It's not technically an axiom because you have a rule. You have an axiom and a rule of inference. But my understanding was it acts real similar to it. It's required as a structure.
No, it's not. All you need is truth tables. That's it. So I understand and I agree her overarching point, which is you can't justify axioms. I agree with that. But modus ponens is not an axiom. It's not fundamental in logic. It's derived from other concepts in logic.
So did you hear what truth he said?
It's wait a minute. Inference.
Yeah, what was it in Brute?
Full of inference derived.
Did you hear what truth he said? Do you have a response to that?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said that what I think you're getting at, or I could be mistaken here, is not the trivial bit about showing the truth table and showing how you can implement and derive things from axioms and inference rules. Like that part is simple. But I think what she's getting at when she says it's false, I understood that to be
I never said it was.
You said it was false.
Okay, well, she said
it's unjustified.
Unjustified. Now, which that usually means showing why it's right or correct. So, how are you using that term when you use it, Godless?
Which term?
Justification.
Oh, like raising the probability.
But raising the probability of what?
A belief. So if you believe modus ponens is like a way to justify beliefs, I want justification for that.
Well, I don't know if it's I guess you could call it a...
Well, she doesn't... I think there was a concession that axioms are necessarily unjustified. So, Carlos, what did you take justification to mean in that context?
Yeah, I take axioms to be
My
unjustified.
contention is that modus ponens is not an axiom. It just isn't.
Yeah, but she wants to. Yeah, but it's derived from axioms, and she wants to say that the axioms are unjustified, and if the axioms are necessarily unjustified,
Well, it's not a very interesting conversation to have because everything is derived from axioms, right?
but that's her conversation. But anyway, but what did you mean by justified?
Proved.
No, I don't know. That just seems like the trivial.
Yeah.
That's just as uninteresting. You can, it's like the first thing they're going to teach you in a logic class. But I think the deeper and more interesting question is why is, X, Y, and Z inference rule normative in the first place? What makes it, what justifies that versus modus morons?
Yeah, but he wanted to say out, but you wanted to debate Godless on her claim, and her claim is that Sean has no justification for modus ponens.
No, it's that she believes I have no justification. There's a strong distinction to be made there, because it's like you can't say that I don't have any justification because you're not saying it's impossible that I don't have justification.
I'm sorry, bro. She fucking slaughtered you there. You don't have justification for modus ponens.
No, I don't have justification for modus ponens, but that doesn't mean I don't have justification for any of my beliefs. I think that my
Oh my God, now he's saying he doesn't have justification for modus ponens. Well, that's what started the whole thing. I was like, how do you justify modus ponens, Sean? And he spent the 20 minutes trying to justify it. This is sad, Sean.
No, I'm pretty sure logic is non-inferentially justified, right? It has to be.
Well, parts of logic are, but I mean, when you say, "Oh, something is not justified," or something is justified, I have always taken that to mean to justify something is that you explain it or you prove it in terms of something that's more fundamental, right? And I don't think it's productive to just say, well, what justifies that in turn? Because you're ultimately just going to get to something that you just can't prove.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that.
Sean, why don't you just ask Godless what does it mean for something to be justified? She says you're not justified, right? So she has to know what it means for something to be justified.
She gave a definition.
Yeah,
What was the definition?
Probability raising. Probability raising.
But that doesn't answer the question, right? Because what are the conditions that raise the probability? Most people, I think, just colloquially take it to mean you have good reason to believe P, right? I don't know what this probability raising stuff is doing or how to even understand that, but just from my basic intro epistemology stuff that I'm reading, I'm not even seeing any mention of probability.
Do you want to debate about it again tomorrow in a room with the replays on so I can get another video out of it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure.
Okay.
We have debate below. What are we going to call Godless?
Why can't you be a boy?
I'm having anxiety. Please can we end the room to say this, be sure the replay gets saved. You can make a new one right away, and we'll all join the new room that you make. Just please can we end this one?
All right.
My reality. Is there something foundational, though, that I'm checking to build my reality upon? Something that we all that's why we object. We have
Your reality is built on. No, your reality is built on your consciousness.
Right, but I mean, there's
That's your model of reality. That's your model of it.
what's beneath
That's what it's
that?
built on.
Well, reality's built on what?
Built on your. So your reality is built on your. It's based on your consciousness.
Yeah, but my reality is
no one denies this.
Look, we're all living like the same world, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is a disingenuous way to go about describing a intersubjective.
I don't think it's disingenuous.
Like, reality.
I think we all understand that.
It's just definitional.
Our personal realities are built upon our intersection of the real world, whatever that is, and the way we perceive it.
Does anybody agree that it's not objective, it's foundational?
You're beneath my too.
Sorry, what did you say, Bishop?
Anything that's like foundational, that's objective. Does anybody believe that? Like,
Oh, yeah. There's an objective reality, yeah.
so that's what you call objective reality, and our reality is built upon objective reality.
So we have access to
I don't know if he ended the room or if he turned the replays off.
No, he
before he ended it.
he ended the room, and I'm pretty sure only the room creator can delete a replay.
Sean, did you end the room?
Nope.
Did you pass mods to someone who got mods after you left?
The room ended as soon as Truthy left.
No, you passed mods to you for a second.
Yeah, for like a split fucking second, and then the room ended. I don't know why you would want the replay for that. You realize you sound like a crazy person. Like, you're literally completely insane.
Sean, are you claiming nobody believes that you think
You're gonna have a heart
nobody
attack
believes that you think that?
from arguing with me about foundationalism.
Sean, that's just my personality. I wasn't even upset.
That doesn't matter. Well, you can't say you're not upset when you're, like, screaming at the top of your lungs. That's just obviously not true.
Sean, I debate like that all the time on the internet. I'm very rarely actually upset.
That you are actually upset. All those times that you're screaming, you're actually upset.
I'm sorry, are you saying that it's impossible for somebody to act like they're upset when they're not? You look stupid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying.
Oh, so you're saying, yeah, so you're saying that it's impossible for someone to act like they're upset when they're not.
Well, let's just say I don't believe that that's what you're doing.
I can see, kind of where Godless is coming from.
Movies must be pretty boring then.
You might be asking yourself, can you actually create high-quality live streams for free?
So you're just acting like you're like really losing your mind. It's like an act.
Well, it's not like it might be in the back of my mind, but I'm not like oh, let me put on an act. It's just kind of like
for that brutal honesty.
When I finish, please. It's just kind of like out of habit from doing it over the years.
Dude, this topic obviously drives you, like, really messes with.
Which topic?
What do you think?
I don't know. Why don't you just tell us? I think because, like, every time you match wits with me, you always come off second best. So I think that you're just afraid to say what you mean right now because I'll just counter it with something to make you look stupid.
The topic of foundationalism, topic of justification and epistemology.
Well, there's tons of videos on my channel and other people's channels of me yelling about a whole wide range of topics. Probably you could find like every area in philosophy, me yelling a video of me yelling about it. So no, I don't know why you would think that epistemology.
That doesn't make you look good. That makes you look.
No, you're trying to move off the point. So you said, like, you're trying to say epistemology in particular upsets me, but I just pointed out you could find a video of me yelling about almost any topic in philosophy. So then why did you say that?
You yell more about this one. You go ape shit.
That's just because I talk about it more.
I don't care what the reason is. If it's true that you get more upset about this topic, then
Sean, try to follow the conversation, okay? You're saying that because I yell about epistemology...
I couldn't care less about this.
Yeah, he's interrupting you now because he's afraid I'm going to make him look stupid. So I'll just talk to the other people. Please don't be rude. I'm talking to the rest of the room. Sean, please don't be rude and interrupt me. I'm talking to the rest of the room. that because I yell about epistemology, that means that topic in particular makes me upset. But I pointed out that I yell about all sorts of topics. You could find a video of me yelling about almost any topic in philosophy. So what the fuck, Sean? You just look really dumb right now.
The replay's up.
Oh yeah, oh my god, yeah, it's gonna load on my channel tomorrow. Oh my god.
Oh God!
Another one.
Upload that.
Notice that, guys, check out the thumbnails of the Sean videos. I always have the same little guy with the stressed out meltdown.
Why would you want people to hear you screaming at the top of your lungs about justification? Why would you ever want to expose?
Just tell Sean, yes, I sound crazy. That's it.
Yeah, Sean, sure, I sound crazy. I'm not going to deny that, but you know what? You still got humiliated in this room. You're just trying to deflect off the content to whine about how I yell.
Screaming at me about, like, justifying modus ponens doesn't make you look good.
I disagree.
Look, Sean, you're just saying you don't like yelling. I don't really care about your preferences. The point is you were humiliated and destroyed.
Screaming over somebody doesn't mean you humiliated or destroyed them. Just
I very rarely interrupted you. You were interrupting me more, actually, than I was interrupting you. And I would wait for your responses and then point out why your responses were stupid. And then you would backpedal. You backpedaled multiple times. And to yeah, I can conceive of it, I can't conceive of it, there's a defeater for it, there's a possible defeater for it, I don't know what it would mean for there to be a defeater for it. And now you're just, and in the end, you said you're agnostic about it, so now you don't even know if it's justified or not.
Well, I don't know if modus ponens is foundational. That's what I said.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing you were trying to argue for. That's the whole thing you were trying to argue for the first 20 minutes. You're pathetic. You're a clown.
You're delusional.
Is that not what, I mean, are you going to tell everybody in here that they're misremembering and that that's not what you're arguing for the first 20 minutes? Sean, come on, why did you, just so I already know, if the people that didn't know, he came at me tonight challenging me to a debate. This isn't me going around bullying Sean, right? He keeps doing this to himself. He's a fucking masochist. Are you getting off on this, Sean? Are you whacking your dick off there while I'm abusing you? What is the motive for this? Why do you keep doing this to yourself?
I think it's funny.
I think you're being dishonest. I think that you keep trying to win and keep failing.
Sean, you want to debate me?
Sure, buddy.
I'm probably an easier target than Godless. Let's go.
Let's go, boy.
What, so I actually missed the first part of that debate. What were you debating on?
The proposition, I guess that you can be justified in believing that nobody knows anything.
You were debating, that was your position?
It seems obvious to me that people know all sorts of things.
What do you define know?
You have some justification for a belief.
So you think having evidence for something is the same thing as knowing it?
Oh, he also thinks that all true beliefs are knowledge, by the way. He doesn't think you actually have to have justification. He just thinks that if it's a true belief that you know it. Isn't that weird? So, if there's a lady...
I don't think that at all.
Oh, did you change it? Did I reform you? You don't believe that anymore? Remember the old lady who hallucinated the weatherman telling her it's raining outside, and she believes it's raining outside, and it's raining outside, and you said she knows that it's raining outside? Do you want to recant that?
I'm trying to talk to somebody else right now, Godless.
Oh, I'm glad I reformed you, and you're not as much of a moron as you used to be.
Sean,
what were we talking about?
How do you know people know things?
Well, I take it that I'm kind of like a... So,
actually,
I support...
What do you mean by knowing? Can you define knowing for me?
Yeah, knowing means that you're justified in a belief that you have.
So the requirement isn't even that the belief is true?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You can have a justified belief that's false. Can you know a justified false belief? What a moron.
I mean, regardless, I really wanted to.
I guess you could have a
Okay,
justified
sorry, Carlos.
belief
I won't say anything
prior
again.
to the defeater.
I won't say anything else, Carlos. But you realize that if truth isn't one of the criteria, he's saying a justified false belief could be known. Isn't that silly? But I won't say. I'm sorry. I won't say anything.
I mean, I believe you can have evidence for a false statement, right?
Yeah, but if it's false, you don't know it, do you?
Yeah, but you know it until the defeater's rendered. If you're like justified in believing it, then you have knowledge.
Oh my God, he is saying that. He's saying that even if it's false, you know it's true. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I need to just put my phone down and get away from the phone for a minute.
No, it's not good.
I know it's true, but it's false.
Well, no, you don't know that it's false. We said you think something is true, you have justification, so you know it. That's you're in the mental state of knowing. And when you get a defeater,
so you're saying
you realize you're wrong.
Knowing things is totally separated from whether or not they're true or false?
No, it's not totally separated. Like,
okay,
obviously, well, it has to be true, but you can never know with like 100% certainty that something is
I would
true.
call. I mean, I know that people don't talk like this and every day, but I would say that if you know something, then you have 100% certainty that it's true.
Yeah, who defined knowledge that way? Who defined knowledge that way?
I mean, when you're talking about
logically necessary things, it's no statement which asserts the existence of anything.
What?
It's such that it's denied.
Wait, hold on. She's hot micing, but it sounds like it's like.
I was reading something else. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, I thought you were sweet talking somebody.
Well,
Yeah, so who defined knowledge that way, Carlos?
I mean, in everyday parlance, yeah. I mean, the problem is that when you're talking about logic, right? People tend to use very precise language when they talk about logic, right? Because words change meaning depending on which context we're in. So I would say knowledge.
Wait a minute.
I'm going to drop to the audience so I can record. I can't record when I'm in voice. Because I think Carlos might destroy Sean right now and get another video out of it.
Carlos, what do you mean by knowledge and logic? I mean, knowledge is typically epistemology. How is it?
I'm having a really hard trouble understanding you. Your mic isn't working that well. But anyway, to me, right, if I know X, it means X is true. That is equivalent to me, right? However, I could have evidence for X, which just means the probability that X is true is increased, or is higher than otherwise. Do you have a problem with that definition, Sean?
Well, say it again. I wasn't even listening.
To me, when I know X, it means that X is true with 100% certainty. I could also have evidence for, say, Y, and that just means that I have higher than, the probability that Y is true has increased for me.
Well, that's like classical foundationalism, right? That's like some sort of infallibilist epistemology, but I don't know. There's like, it's supposed to be like difficult to defend that. Maybe most people, I think that like modern philosophy, people take like knowledge to be defeasible.
Okay, I mean, I don't know how you could say that it's wrong. It's just I'm just defining words, right? And if you disagree with them, we can just swap dictionaries. And I can use your language, you can use my language, right? My interest here is to use words consistently.
Well, how would you defend? Well, so knowledge is something you know with 100% certainty. Can you give me an example?
I think, or I exist. Right. Those are things that I know with 100% certainty.
Right. Maybe you're right. I'm not really sure. It just seems like a difficult thing to defend. I don't.
Okay. I mean, granted, I understand.
I guess Godless would say, "What's the justification
for what?
That you think anything that you know?"
It's unjustified, I guess.
So justification isn't a condition for knowledge in
Justification is not the condition for knowledge. I don't know what you mean by that. By that, do you mean?
Well, it's not a necessary condition for knowledge. Like typically, people take like justification, truth, and belief to be the three conditions for knowledge.
Well, those no, I don't. Those are necessary to make arguments, right, and to deduce things. But I don't believe that ultimately you have to justify your axioms, right? They just have to be useful axioms.
Well, I agree that you don't have to justify them. That means like there's no other beliefs that justify your foundational beliefs. But that doesn't mean your foundational beliefs are unjustified. It could be that, like, take like sense perception, take like perceptual beliefs, right? Your perceptual experiences aren't justified or unjustified. It would be a category error to like ascribe justification to me looking at a cup on my table right now. That's just an experience that I'm having. But that experience gives rise to the belief that there's a cup on my table.
Sure. So the problem here, right, is that when we're just talking about observing stuff, I totally agree with you that the way that you're justifying things, right, is that you're basically coming up with rules that are reproducible within your perceptions, right? But when you talk about epistemology in and of itself, that necessarily is somewhat circular, right? So you sort of have to I'm sorry. I should not be having this conversation this late at night.
Clubhouse fucking sucks. I hate this stupid ass app.
I really need
I just think that there are some things that are like self-evident that everybody assumes in order to like, especially in order to like advance arguments. But
yeah, I mean, I agree that
even in an everyday context.
Well, when you say self-evident, what do you mean by self-evident? Do you mean like they are clearly true because they explain things that we see, or that if we follow those things, we can predict things, or like what do you mean by that?
It's like just a class of like propositions that are like undeniable. Like, now, I don't know if it's because something is undeniable that it's infallible, but like you said, like I exist. Something exists. Something is thinking, having experiences. 2 + 2 = 4? Maybe? I don't know. Seems like sort of foundational.
So if I were to ask you, like, how you can justify 2 + 2 = 4, like, what would you say?
It doesn't need a reason. It's just like true. It just has like the forcefulness.
Really, because I would say, well, when we use mathematics in which 2 + 2 = 4, you know, it is useful for us. We can predict things. We can build computers. We can build rockets. But the problem with you saying like a law of logic is self-evident is that the very mechanism by which you use to affirm that law of logic is useful is the very thing you're trying to justify. Does that make sense?
Sorry, what?
So my issue with like these analogies and going back to like logic and reason is that if you assume or you presuppose that 2 + 2 = 4, right? You can very easily demonstrate that it yields a useful mathematics. We get rockets from 2 + 2 = 4, and other things, obviously, right? But it's a necessary precondition for things like computers and rockets and technology, right? But the problem is that you are then saying, well, logic itself, right, is justified through the things that I observe, right? Like, and through reasoning, through deductive arguments or inductive arguments or whatever. But those themselves make reference to the very thing you're trying to justify. And there I see a problem. There I think you have to say, I have no justification for it.
Okay, well, then you have no knowledge.
What do you mean I have no knowledge?
Well, how are you defining knowledge? Are you requiring justification or not?
I can make truth claims with fuzzy logic, right, or with probability.
I think I was reading somewhere that you can have that unjustified beliefs can justify other beliefs. So maybe in that sense,
yeah, absolutely. You can have you can have something that's not justified, and use that to derive something that must be true if this is true. This is how all of proofs are. All proofs are like, if this is true, then this also must be true. That must also be true. Then that must also be true, right? But that doesn't mean we have said anything about the truthiness of the very thing that we're assuming.
well, isn't that the skeptical challenge? Like, if you don't know that your starting point is true, then how can you say other things that are built from that are true?
What is wrong with saying, let's say P is my foundational statement or whatever, right? If P is true, then all these things must follow. But I'm also going to consider the case where not P is true. And I'm just going to yeah, sure. Like, what is wrong with saying, if P is true, then all these other things must follow, and if not P is true, then all these other things must follow. And just assigning...
If P is true, then all these things must follow. What do you mean by all? If P is true, then Q, then what? Then something else is true?
Yeah, like all the things that it implies must be true, right? Or if not P is true, then all these other things that it implies must also be true, right? And just operate in the world where you don't know for sure which one is true, right? You just assign some probability to each of them.
Yeah, but that's fine. But then you're just conceding to the skeptic that, like, you don't know if anything is true.
I know if P is true, then something else must be true. I mean, I guess you could say that. How do you know that?
But your point was that your starting points are not. You don't know if they're true.
Right, but just because I don't know what the truthiness of P doesn't mean that I can't deduce things from either outcome of P.
If you don't know the truthiness of P, it doesn't mean you can't deduce other things. Well, what do you mean by... if you're saying deduce, you mean like come to a true conclusion, and the skeptic is going to say no. You can't.
Yes. Well, yes, you can come to a true conclusion. Right. So, like, for example.
I think maybe we're confusing soundness with validity. Right? If you don't know if the premise is true or not, you can't say whether it's sound. I mean, it could be a valid argument.
Carlos is mainly just talking about formal validity and proving how systems are consistent. I think Sean's talking about something else.
I mean, obviously, I can't fucking. Obviously, I can't fucking solve the problem.
I think Carlos is just making a kind of a trivial point about how you can build formal systems. So what?
Well, yeah, and also that you need to have some sort of utilitarian account for mathematics. Like,
You need?
like 2 plus 2 equals 4 is true because we can build rockets, I think was the example.
Well, isn't that just going to presuppose some type of like standard of value?
Well, I have no problem with, and I won't say 2 plus 2 equals 4 because we can build rockets. I'd say that 2 plus 2 equals 4 because, there is evidence for 2 plus 2 equals 4 because we can build rockets, which is not quite the same thing.
Well, if you understand what 2 is, and you understand what addition is, then you understand that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And it has no reference to rockets or anything else.
I understand. I understand that. But my point is that you can have justifications for certain claims. I think the correct term is inductively, right? Because they are reproducible and they describe the world in which you're in accurately.
But wouldn't mathematical truths be analytical?
Yeah, it would be like a necessary.
Hey, your mic is missed.
He would say that they're necessary truths, is what I heard him say.
That's also
Is this any better?
yeah, that is better.
Alright, sorry, I hit my feet. Yeah, I said it would be a necessary truth. What do you mean you can, so that 2 plus 2 is 4, right? You can have a utility to it, or some kind of instrumentalism or something, and use that. But using that in this utility, you're not going to confirm that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's like a, kind of like a starting point. You can't justify 2 plus 2 equals 4. It just means you can use it. It has a utility to it.
Right.
Yeah, there are some esoteric areas of mathematics, like knot theory or something, that are true but aren't useful to building rockets or anything in anybody's daily life, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking of it purely from an epistemic sense. And that's why, thinking about it.
I'm agreeing with you, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, logically, I think Carlos is, like he was talking about earlier, using more precise language within, the logical side of it, which is, I think, what's confusing me.
So I think a better example maybe would be like, say, Newton's equations of motion, right? He came up with them. How do we know they're true? Well, because some guy threw a ball a million times, made measurements on it, and it mostly fit the equation. Therefore, back in the day, they declared it accurate, right? That doesn't prove it true. It's just evidence for it being true. And I think you can do that with a lot of axioms, actually, just not with certain logical axioms.
So, like, you're saying modus ponens requires some other justification other than the self-evident nature of it.
Oh, well, modus ponens is provable, it's derivable from other axioms of logic.
Okay, so then, like, the law of identity requires some sort of additional justification for it, right? Other than understanding what it's trying to say.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it doesn't necessitate justification. I mean, you can just declare it to be true, right? And then what must follow from it, but it has no justification in and of itself.
But you can declare anything to be true, right? And I think you could say that the justification for the law of identity is stronger than the justification for, I think cheeseburgers are going to be served tomorrow at the cafeteria. Right?
Well, depends on how you use the word justification. Right? If we're using it in everyday parlance,
just the reason why you assert a particular proposition. Or what's the causal chain, or whatever you want to say.
Well, that's different than what you just said.
Well, I'm saying in the instance of cheeseburgers, if you want to account for some like inductive reason for thinking cheeseburgers will be served tomorrow, right? So because every Monday cheeseburgers are served, and tomorrow's Monday. I know that, right?
By the way, you can prove 2 plus 2 equals 4 from. It's generally it's derived from the axioms of set theory, which are considered more basic. I mean, it's true that those axioms, you can say exactly what you guys were saying earlier, but yeah. In fact, if you go back the Principia, it's like on page 300 something.
Whitehead, Russell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a long proof.
but I think only because they start from extremely simple axioms, right? And these days you can do things like piano arithmetic or Zermelo-Frankel.
Yeah. But some people have problems with Zermelo-Frankel. But
yeah, I mean,
it's fine. But set theory more generally, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Set theory is what starts off math, I think, in some sense.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty defensible position. Platonists certainly like it, especially some Neoplatonists.
That's interesting, because it's easier to think of sets as having a real existence than numbers.
Well, they would say something like, you've got the one is kind of the most foundational thing in Neoplatonism, right?
Right, and that's just the empty set, and then you can construct everything else.
Or maybe it's the set of all sets. I don't know. And then you can construct everything from there. There was a really long lecture on that I listened to a couple years ago, but the guy did a pretty good job of just showing how you can do things like build Turing machines from just he just stepped through it just using set theory, and it was.
I mean, you did it all out in one lecture,
It was like a 6-part, 4 or 6-part lecture. It was pretty cool. I think it was on MIT OpenCourseWare, something like that.
Interesting.
And then there was a Neoplatonist philosopher out of, I think it was SUNY, State University of New York, or maybe it was some Northeastern university, and he's a big Neoplatonist now, and he was on there's a YouTube channel called Majesty of Reason.
Oh yeah,
you heard of that?
Yeah.
And he was on there, and he had a nice long conversation with I think Joe Schmidt is his name, the
channel. Yeah, Joe Schmidt, I love him.
Yeah, he's such a good guy. I like his earnestness, and he's pretty wicked smart.
Yeah, he's not old enough yet, but I've got Malpass and Oppie as the saints of atheist philosophers, but he's getting there when he gets old enough. He's the third saint.
Well, he still considers himself agnostic. But it kills me because he thinks like the strongest arguments are like these arguments from design, like these like fine tuning arguments. He just thinks it's more expected on the God. Sorry, God.
I think the fine tuning is one of the better arguments, in my opinion. At least like a Luke Barnes style with Bayesian.
Yeah, I think the math comes out totally against the theist on it, though. If you push back in all the universe that we actually see, and you say which hypothesis predicts the universe that we see, it's a not God hypothesis that predicts a massive, huge universe that's ancient, that's got hundreds of thousands of little chemistry sets, that you've got life on one tiny little planet because it's like super rare and hard and complex.
Yeah, but wait a minute. But that goes against the purpose of the multiverse theory. I mean, that's one of the reasons for.
Well, that's to get around the anthropic principle, right? But we would say that any life-holding universe would be old and massive, right? You could say that like the multiverse maybe allows you a little more leeway in like the constants of nature, but I don't see how you get any sort of intelligent, complex life when you have like vastly different laws of physics than we do here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because the laws of physics aren't necessary. So I mean,
if we could jump from universe to universe to universe, the atheist theory would predict that every universe that we find life in is probably going to be really old and really massive, and most of it's going to be antagonistic to life, as opposed to...
So how do you deal with the Boltzmann brain issue?
Yeah, Boltzmann brain tries to divorce reality, right? Like, to have a brain and consciousness, it's not just going to be popping into existence, right? You're going to have it's like the most complex universe that we know of, right? Is the human
but if we have it
brain.
in evolved life form, it would seem that it would be far less complex than what it is. So it would be...
Sorry, say it again.
If we have an evolved life form, it would be far more of a simple and not as complex. It would be simply a brain with eyes. Why, if it's evolved, into the extremely complex living creatures like we are, it would seem that if it was, random, it would be...
The complex part is the brain.
Well, I'm talking about all of it together, the composition of living, things. It would seem the simplest. I mean, if it was random, and it just evolved from this randomness, I mean, doesn't it seem at least intuitive in some sense that it would be far simpler? It would just be like brains with eyes instead of everything that,
because brains with eyes has no survival. Like, let's imagine like a brain popping into existence. Right? I mean, the chances of that happening are, longer than the lifespan of the universe, right? So you wouldn't expect to ever find one.
Well, I think but the popping into existence, that would be one against the multiverse theory. I'm just talking about the evolution of complex life forms. It would seem that we would have far more simplistic life forms if it was just random. And that's just,
right? Like, the vast majority of life forms on Earth are unicellular organisms. And that's after billions of years of evolution.
Yeah, but we still have very complex life forms too.
Yeah, but 99% of the biomass is in unicellular organisms.
Yeah. It's just, to me, it's kind of an intuitive thing. It would seem to me that, this universe will be just full of far more simpler things and not all the, complexity that we see.
I mean, you'd think that if the universe is designed for life, 99.999% of it wouldn't be a radiation-filled vacuum that was trying to kill everything that ever lived.
Well, unless it was designed for a specific kind of life that does exist.
Right, and that's like what the not God hypothesis would predict, right? As opposed to the God hypothesis, which predicts everything, right? It could predict what we see here. It could predict a universe where there's only one planet and a little sun that goes around it. You know,
yeah, but what is a not God hypothesis? It's just saying it's randomness. It just is the way it is.
Randomness has bits of order in it, right? I mean, that's kind of what we see in like the microwave background radiation. You know, you see these little clumps of material and whatnot, right? And that's how we know when something is truly random or not, right? If something is engineered to look random, one of the things that we look for is the absence of order in it, because you'll have strings of, repeating fives or, some sequence of numbers that repeats themselves and whatnot. And so order exists within chaos.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, and then there's entropy and other. But anyway, I got to finish. I'm gonna listen in. I got to finish working on what I was. I would definitely like to maybe have a little more conversation on that. In the future. It's been a while since I've spent any time with the fine tuning and things like that. So
it's a fun topic.
Yeah, I know what I've retained, but it's by far not where it's one of those things, at one time I spent a lot of time on it, and now I got to kind of refresh on it, so, but.
Yeah, there's, I can put something in chat if you want to follow up on it.
Yeah, sure. I will tell you this. I think one of my favorite exchanges, in the fine-tuning is Sean Carroll and Luke Barnes on Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
Sean Carroll's got a way of just cutting through the bullshit.
Sean Carroll was just spot on that whole thing. Because he is a philosopher, he's a theoretical physicist. So he's not just coming at it from...
He's a metaphysician with really good data.
Right. He's kind of dabbling. His field is perfecting both sides of it. So I do love Sean Carroll, though. Matter of fact, that he's one of the probably 4 or 5 debaters that I think outdid Craig. I think Sean Carroll did fantastic in that one. I think he came out on top.
He dunked on him like nobody's. Like I've never seen anybody do it.
Well, I think Shelley Kagan did the best.
Shelley Kagan? I'll have to look that up.
Yes. Yeah, he's an ethicist, philosopher. And
but his name's Shelley?
Yeah, Shelley Kagan.
A man named Shelley.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Shelley?
Yeah, if you liked Sean's performance, Shelley's every bit of that and a bag of chips.
What's his last name? Sorry.
Kagan, I think it's Kagan. It's a great conversation and debate, but I think...
yes. Okay.
But that's kind of Craig's thing is, he's a very good debater. He was a champion debater and all those things. Yeah. But if you're going to go...
Polished.
Yeah, and if you're going to go debate somebody in their specialty field, that's a hell of a lot to bite off.
Well, he thinks that he's done a lot of, his own reading and writing and research and theories of time and stuff like that, but he's coming at it in a very, like an apologetic framework, right, where he's got a conclusion and he's trying to find any way to prove, a theory of time or something. It's
and one of the things, I kind of understand what he was saying, but one of the things that really kind of set me back on Craig is he had made a statement in his Ender series, and I think even maybe one of his debates, where he said that if all of the arguments for God failed, he would still be a Christian because of the witness of the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, bro, that's one hell of an inner witness. I'm a Christian. if all of them failed, I'd be scratching my head going, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here?
You know, why are they all failing?
Yeah. Why am I believing this if there doesn't seem to be anything to support it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, you hope that there's some evidence for it, right? But
well, I mean, my position is I think it's abductive. Either way, if somebody's not convinced by the abductive arguments and they think 1, 2, 3, 4, or all of them failed, then they're just not going to be convinced. At the same time, I don't think there's really a argument for God, or an argument for God. I think you have to have a cumulative case. It has to be abductive. And yeah, for an argument, because, you can have...
certain cumulative cases can be good, right?
You can have, some kind of special revelation or something, or some kind of experience or something, and it'd be real hard to deny, that experience if you're a rational person with working cognitive, functions.
You're pretty sure you didn't take any mushrooms.
Exactly.
But it's hard to tell when you're out on the ranch a long time,
Yeah, man, I know that's right. Well, that's funny because I'm about to tell you, I live in Arkansas, and I'm about to tell you some of the most Arkansas shit you're going to hear.
Oh, nice.
I am listening on here and drinking wild turkey and finishing up my chicken coop. It was so hot.
Can you see the stars?
Oh, absolutely. I'm in the middle of nowhere.
There you go, man. That's awesome. I love going out in the middle of nowhere. We just
chicken
spent 2 weeks.
Chickens I didn't fucking want because chickens are nasty. They're disgusting.
They are nasty, man. They're little fucking devolved dinosaurs, man. You can't trust them.
Well, they literally sleep and lay eggs in their own shit.
They're born to die.
Yeah, they don't care.
Oh.
Yeah, do you sell the eggs? Like, do you?
No,
okay.
Yeah, we grew up in the city, and we moved out years ago out to the country, and we were like, oh, okay, let's try to do this whole homesteading, thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but we started with chickens before, and after that experience, I was like, hell no, I'm not having chickens ever again. And then my daughter, last day of school, comes home with 4 baby chicks.
You were set up.
To kill them. They were going to have to kill them. We had to take them. So guess who's here now trying to keep these 4 nasty fat birds cooped up?
Oh, there are a lot of coyotes around there.
Yeah.
Sometimes chicken coops get left open.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if something was to happen to them.
Man, you know what? I tried. These bastards are too smart. They, I have kind of a half wraparound porch, and they hang out on the porch.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm finishing this, because I'm tired of them shitting on my porch. And they can fly just enough to kind of get away. So. Anyway, I think it's just finish up. Somebody else talk.
All right. Have a good one.